Just waiting till everybody gets in and then we'll start. Oh, I love seeing people with their cameras on. It really does make for a much more interactive and better program for the instructors and for the attendees. So I'm Lisa Ginsburg, and I am the Director of Education at BCAR, and welcome to our Negotiation Strategies program with Bill Lublin today. Just a few housekeeping announcements. Please keep yourself on mute throughout the program. As I just mentioned, please feel free to take your camera off and put your camera on. Put your camera on so that we can see you. This program is being recorded and will be sent to all members after the fact. So please share it with your colleagues. In terms of if you have questions for Bill, you can put them in the chat, or you can actually just physically raise your hand. And, we'll make sure your questions get answered. A few of you did have questions in advance, and I did forward those to Bill. Before we begin with Bill, though, it's my pleasure to introduce one of our affiliate members, Mary McBride. She is the Assistant Branch Manager of the Newtown campus of WSFS, and she's going to give a brief introduction about her services and products. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Lisa. Again, I am the Assistant Branch Manager of the WSFS branch in Newtown, Bucks County. WSFS has been servicing the consumer and the business owners, customers for nearly 200 years. So we offer a full array of products and services. You may already know about our mortgages and mortgage options and home equity products, but did you know that WSFS Bank offers commercial and small business lending programs? So if you're interested, let me know. In addition to our lending, we can also assist you with cash management and wealth investment solutions. So please feel free to reach out to me. I will be sending Lisa some information about us to forward on to you during your sessions or following your sessions. So my information will be attached, and I hope you enjoy your time today and also have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our CEO, Pam Krogh. Thanks, Pam.
Sure. Thanks so much, Lisa. And thanks, Mary. It was great to see Mary. It's been a while since we've been in person, and we really miss our affiliates. But I'm very happy today to be able to participate in this great education session for our members. 2 years ago, when the pandemic first hit, we had to pivot away from live classes, live events, and the board at the time decided that they wanted to produce content for our members remotely. So we started with our Zoom series. And this has proven to be a terrific collaboration of all of our committees: the Education Committee, the Diversity Committee, the Technology Committee, the leadership team. SRA got involved. We had town hall meetings with the Bucks County commissioners. We've done, Lisa was just telling me this morning, we've done 28 of these sessions over the past 2 years. So we're very excited to bring this to you. It is going to be recorded, and it will be emailed out to all BCAR members. So if folks missed it, they can catch up on it. So I do not want to take any more valuable time. I do, however, want to introduce you to our president, our 2022 BCAR president, Lynn Scherer, who is here today. Lynn, feel free to take it away.
Hello, and I'm honored to serve as your president for the 2022 year. Lots of things in the plans, lots of things in the works. So you'll be hearing more from me as the year progresses. But today, I actually have the honor of introducing our speaker. Bill Lublin is the CEO of Century 21 Advantage Gold, which is the largest Century 21 firm in Pennsylvania. He has spoken at every major real estate conference in the US and specializes in making complicated things simple by offering real world solutions. As a working realtor with a love of technology, Bill serves as our 2022 PAR treasurer, a director for NAR, and the two largest MLS is in the country, as well as mentoring real estate tech startups for NAR's REACH program and Modern Ventures VC. He created the NAR's Tech Edge event and speaks around the world on technology and real estate, aiming to deliver actionable items to his audience. So we're real lucky to have Bill with us today. And with that being said, Bill, you're on.
Thank you so much, President Lynn. I have to tell you, I got to spend some time with Lynn in Harrisburg as she was doing the business of the industry this week. And we are lucky at BCAR to have somebody who is so diligent and works so hard on your behalf, even when you don't know she's doing that. But she was doing that all week. Thank you so much for the introduction, Lynn. It's so nice to see some people have their cameras on, and I'm wondering what the other people are doing who have their cameras off, but we'll focus just on you guys. We have some questions that people sent in advance. Negotiation, I think, is something that when you think about it, we all do all the time. We negotiate as children with our parents, as parents with our children. We negotiate as partners or spouses. We negotiate when we're consumers. We negotiate as professionals. We do it so frequently that often we don't recommend it. And I hesitate to say this because I see that we have Ron Clark on the phone on the meeting with us, and Ron is an excellent negotiator. And I see Ray Rysack, whom I haven't seen in a while. Hello, Ray, who has been negotiating. He actually was the listing broker on the Flintstone house when I was the buyer agent when Fred and Wilma sold the house. It was a breakup. We don't like to talk about it, but we'll go a little further. So let's start by talking about negotiation as a process. And I'm going to do that by sharing my screen with you. He said quickly. There we go. You got it, guys? Well, yay, we can all see it. And I will, if I look like I'm looking at somebody off the screen, I am working on 3 screens here. Excuse me. And you guys are in my upper right. So I'll keep looking to see if you have raised a hand or if you're waving or you need a bath. If you need a bathroom break, by the way, I don't need to let you go. Just so you know, this is not that kind of class. But let's talk about the negotiation process, because I think we often go in and negotiate, and we negotiate automatically. We negotiate from habit. We negotiate not recognizing cultural differences. And it's really like anything else we do, it's better if it's done intentionally. So one of the questions we got from our member, Jim Mao, and Jim, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, was any strategy on price competition. You know, when in many houses, buyers have to increase their price to win, but how much is too much? Well, part of the preparation as a buyer's agent is to know what the market parameters are, to know whether homes are being sold over or under the asking price, to know what the range of areas are, and to know what the objectives are for your client. You know, it's we'll talk about the 4 results of negotiation or the 4 resolutions of conflict in just a second. But you have to start by knowing what's right. Now, I have an adult son who's in California who's looking for a home now, and he's prepared that in the typically homes are put on the market somewhere in the $100,000 range below what they will actually sell for, because the competition is so great. So if a home is on the market at 800, probably it's going to go somewhere between 9 and 950. So he needs to know statistically what's too much at some point, obviously, is more than you can afford. But he needs to know what is reasonable within the market based on the activities of the market, right? The market's not one buyer, one house, one seller. The market is all of the houses, all of the buyers, all of the sellers. And then using those trends, your buyer makes a well-informed trade. So you need to know what the market conditions are. When you're going into a property, you should identify the non-negotiables. What are the things the seller or buyer can't live without? And sometimes they're just really financially or physically unable to negotiate certain things. The date they have to be out, the date they have to stay until. So identify what they are and know what your objective is. I mean, what is your client trying to obtain? We have a situation where a client found a large gas lien on a property that they're selling. The property was an investment property. A former tenant sublet without authority to another individual, creating a squatter situation. The squatter's uncooperative. They're hiding behind COVID, of course. And this is a Philadelphia property. The slowness of the judicial process and the difficulty of evicting somebody without a lease. And she sold it to somebody with the tenant in place because that's kind of a non-negotiable for her unless she's willing to wait until she gets rid of the tenant. And then a large gas lien came up and she's now upset about other things that the buyer has no control over. And somewhere in the negotiation, we're going to have to get her to take a step back to look at the facts less emotionally. And in negotiating, sometimes you guys who are negotiating on behalf of someone else will allow your emotions to get in the way of their situation. So preparation is the first thing you should do. And I'm going to tell you that preparation in our business includes establishing relationship with other brokerages and establishing, and when I say other brokerages, I mean agents at other brokerages. If you are liked, something coming from you is going to go better than from someone who is not liked. If you are pleasant, if you are abrupt, people will remember those things. And that's part of what you have to think about in establishing your agent network as you're doing business. Then you have the exchange of information. You're going to, people will call, and I'm going to say in preparation, and I say this as someone who sells their own real estate and who has been mostly a listing agent for the last 30 years, go to the MLS and read the MLS entry before you call and ask for information. Because if you're a listing agent and you're being asked questions by a buyer's agent, and the buyer's agent was called by their client who saw the property on a portal, and you've just looked at the portal, you've not taken the time to go and get the information from the MLS, and there's a ton of information there, right? There may be instructions to you in the agent information. There's public information that you may look at. You may look at the last transactions, the MLS history. There's a lot of information for you to get. So get as much information for your client about the transaction and about the needs of the seller. And again, then be collegial, be friendly, be nice to set the tone. Whatever you would want somebody to do that for that other person. Treat them even better than you'd want to be treated. My girlfriend, though she's not a little girl, my girlfriend has a younger brother who's a doctor. He was looking for property in Philadelphia. When I would call to ask questions of the agent or to get information for my client, I always let them know that it was somebody that I considered a family member. I let them know that I'd really appreciate whatever help they could provide. There's nothing wrong with asking them. The fact that you're an advocate for your client doesn't mean that you can't be collegial. You don't have to be adversarial. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay, good. And the other thing is, don't give up confidential information. Ask about and talk about market data. It's always funny to me when I'm talking to cooperating agents, how much information they give up without, they're just not thinking. There's, these poor people, they've lost 5 of the last, 4 properties they bid on. They're just really stressed out. They really need to move. Their parents are moving to Florida. They've been living at home with the parents. They have no place to live after March 15th. As a listing agent, I hear my clients are really desperate. You can probably gain concessions from them or get a higher price from them because they're negotiating from a position of weakness, right? A lot of negotiation is about the position. If you are negotiating from a position of strength, it's much more difficult to get you off of your bargaining points. Does that make sense to you guys? So think about that when you're providing information, but be careful, be thoughtful in what you're doing. Then after the preparation and the exchange of information you're obtaining and providing, then you run into the bargaining process. And again, we're going to talk about what these items of value are. The items of value are not always money, and you want to try to, there are tools and techniques and tactics that you use that you don't even think about. How many of you, if you'll just show my hands, how many of you have ever listed it for sale by owner? I see Ron, I see Ray, I see Lynn. Okay, I see 1 or 2. First of all, when you all get off the phone, oh wait, you work for my competitors. No, never mind. You don't have to call for sale by owners. Should all be calling for sale by owners, guys. They're a great, or expireds. They're a great source of business for you. But when I worked for sale by owners for many years, and when I did, one of the benefits that I gave to a for sale by owner, one of the reasons for using my services was that I was able to defer to a third party. I was able to say, well, let me get that. I don't know whether or not your offer will be acceptable. Give me the best you can, and let me go back to my client and talk to them about it, right? We don't have to say yes or no right away. We can get them in a position, and then we're able to further negotiate with them because they've already made that first jump, right? And then we're doing something called selling the difference. Right now, we're not selling them from $0. We're selling them from wherever their initial offer was to the higher offer that we may need to get for our client, right? And then there's the closing where the parties agree. We have hopefully found items that satisfy their needs, wants, and wishes. And you really need to break things down into needs, wants, and wishes, right? The needs are things that the client has to have. The wants are the things that would be nice to have. And the wishes are things that are just bonuses. Like we'd like to have them, but we can live without them and we'll be perfectly happy without it. And then we're going to try to make everybody feel good about it. As I said to you earlier, there are really 4 types of negotiated results. There is win-lose, and when you were a little kid or when my son was small, we used to call that the I'm tall, you're small rule. Why can't I get this? Well, because I'm tall, you're small. It doesn't matter. It's unfair. I win, you lose, right? There is a lose-win where I'm willing to take the loss for you to have the win for some reason. And that's generally a very uncomfortable, if we are the first person in all of these, that's generally a very uncomfortable type of negotiation. But we may need to take and generally, for me at least, this will be a subset. I may lose something and give you the win in a series of negotiations, so that I can get to my eventual goal, whatever that goal is. There's the lose-lose. If you've ever had a divorce sale, the two parties are sometimes so invested in having the other party damaged that they'll happily take a hit. You know, I've sold foreclosures for I don't know, 35 years, 34 years. Many of those foreclosures were lose-lose negotiations among divorcees. He or she is living in it, and the other person's not going to participate in making the mortgage payments because he doesn't care or she doesn't care if that person gets thrown out, and then they both lose a property that they could have actually sold and shared the equity in. And then the final is the win-win. It's what's called principal negotiation. If you enter into it, if you enter into the negotiation looking for this outcome, it's what we call principled negotiation. And it's really, I think, one of the best outcomes, because in a win-win, no matter who has gotten more, no matter who has achieved the superior goal, everybody feels good and is ready to do business with that person again. Jim Mao, you have your hand up.
Yeah,
you
Bill,
wanna-
may I ask a question?
Sure.
So a minute ago, you touched about, okay, like for example, I'm buy agent. I present my buyer information to the seller side, try to win the bid, right? Try to get attention, maybe whatever. So could you go back to summarize what kind of information maybe help us to win the bid? What kind of maybe we need to avoid it? I mean, this may be a psychological fight.
I'm gonna ask you to hold that thought because I think I'm going to answer it for you in a little bit.
Thank you.
But if I don't, please throw your hand back up again and I will call on you again. And we'll go over some ideas for you. You know, but the question that Jim just asked, which is really important, is we can only go so far in price, right? Like everybody doesn't have unlimited ability to purchase. The question then becomes, what else can we use in our negotiation to get the deal? And I will
Yes,
tell
that's
you,
an
and
excellent question.
you
Thank
know
you.
this, it's not always the highest offer that wins the deal. I mean, often it is, but not always, right? So give some thought to that. Keep that in the back of your mind as we're talking about some of the other items. So the problem is the person who wants the deal in the worst way usually gets it that way. Take a beat, think about it. Robin got it. Robin Schweier, I see her smiling. It's interesting. I never really think about wanting or not wanting it. But again, in a family situation a few years ago, I was trying to get a property for a family member. And we were under a lot of competition, and I'm talking to the other agent, and my assistant turned to me after the call and said, you know, that's the first time I ever heard you want the deal. Generally, when I present a deal, I try to present it positively, but I try not, showing the want is showing a weakness, right? If you really want what I have, you will pay more for it. So I'm a comic book nerd. Do I have any comic book nerds in the room? Gerald Haggerty, I got him. That's good. So, and Denise Reichard, we got that. Ray Rysack held his hand up. I think he's just waving at me. So in the comic book world, you know, these are items that cost 10 cents, 35 cents, $1, that people now pay 6 figures, sometimes 7 figures for, because they want them, especially very old books. It's a matter of desire, demand, and supply. So the more you show me that you want something, the more I'm liable to ask you for it. In China a few years ago, we were on tour, and in most tours they take you by stores, and there was a store in which my significant other had taken a look, and there was a string of pearls she liked, and she's Eastern European, has a very strong negotiating technique. The woman in the store is a professional salesperson in a culture that is extremely skilled in negotiating. And she's used to people coming in from America, and she'll say X number of dollars and they'll say, okay, or offer a small amount less and it'll be done. And she'll say no, because she's a win-lose negotiator and she's in a very strong position. She had never met my significant other, who looked at it and said, no, I like them, but I'm not willing to pay more than X. The woman said, can't sell them to you for X. She said, that's fine. You don't have to sell them to me, and began to walk away. Lady said, no, wait. Let me sell them to you for this much less. My significant other said, no, I'm willing to pay X, and that's it. The woman literally chased us to the bus with the pearls in her. And these were not inexpensive pearls, by the way, but literally chased us to the bus. And I had said to her at the beginning, if you'll just sell them to her for what she's offering, we can save you a lot of time. She chose not to. She ended up running to the bus. We paid what my significant other had offered her. And for the rest of the tour, every person on the bus who went to negotiate something kept coming up to her and going, would you mind coming over here and talking to them with me? Because she was fine walking away. She would have been, she was in China, she's having a great time. She went in, she bought some stuff. She would have been okay owning the pearls and okay not owning the pearls. So making sure that you're not showing that weakness, but knowing who actually is negotiating from strength. Right now, in today's market, typically the seller is negotiating from strength. That doesn't mean you can do anything you want. I will tell you, I had a commercial negotiation recently. Well, I'll tell you that story later, but let's go back to this. If you're a buyer's agent right now, you probably feel you are not negotiating from strength. Fair? But if you are a buyer's agent who has a more substantial down payment, you feel a little bit better, right? You're stronger than the buyer's agent representing a client who has less money to put down or who might need a buyer assist. When you go in to negotiate, make sure you've got your preparation. Make sure that you are respectful of the listing agent's time. Make sure that you are collegial and pleasant. Ask them if there are specific terms that the seller wants, if there's anything you can do to help to get to the seller's goals. Get as much information as you can about the seller's situation and work from there. Because the problem is there really is no, and I'm having this conversation, as I said, excuse me, with my son who's looking in California, who is a first-time home buyer, and has really, other than being my son, really was never worked in the business or was exposed to the business. So he's trying to figure out what's the real value of the home. How do I avoid overpaying in the current market? And the value of a home is determined by who we represent. Wouldn't you guys agree? I have recognized that I have turned into that pain in the neck parent advising their child from every home is too much money and the houses aren't nice enough for my kid and they should be thrilled to get it. But I know that somebody else will buy it, and it's okay for somebody else to buy it, because the one thing that all of us know is the home that will make our buyers happy is the last home they will make an offer on, and it's the one that they will make a successful offer on, right? Because they'll change it, they'll make it their own. If they lose a house, the next house will be great. But you want to try to keep in mind, again, being intentional about it, what the alternatives are to your negotiated agreement, right? Like what happens if you don't negotiate an agreement on this particular house, right? And what's the best thing that's going to happen and what's the worst thing? And they are called the BATNA and the WATNA, right? Best alternative to a negotiated agreement and the worst alternative to a negotiated agreement. So the question is when the buyer is trying to figure out what they can offer. And again, there's an actual limit to what they can offer. You know, that Jim's question was, how do you avoid paying too much? Well, the truth is you can't pay too much. You can't pay more than you're able to pay. Right. But I think Jim's deeper question is, how does my buyer avoid feeling as if they have overpaid, as if they have bought a dollar bill for $2 and they'll never be able to get their dollar back? And that's partially about presenting to your buyer the realities of the real estate marketplace. If you were in the real estate market, and many of you were in the early 2000s, the market was super overheated. Prices were moving up very, very rapidly. And then in 2007, 8, and 9, for the first time, we saw a really, really significant and longer term readjustment in prices where there was a significant downswing. Now, does that mean that the client that bought a house in, I bought my condo in LA in 2007. So did I lose money in 2008 and 2009? What do you think? You can shake your heads yes or no. I'm seeing some each. The truth is I didn't lose anything because I still own it. Right? You don't have a loss until you realize the loss. You can't have a profit until you realize the profit. But we've gotten into a real estate market where we look at our homes often as if they were a Vanguard account, right? The market's up. Oh, I made $10,000. The market's down. Oh, I lost $10,000. You didn't lose anything. You didn't gain anything. You were living in the house. You're not selling the house. When you sell the house, you may win or lose. Now, I will tell you, and I have been in the business for a long enough period of time that I'm almost embarrassed to tell people because it immediately makes me feel old. But I have never seen a period where a homeowner owned a home for 8 to 10 years and didn't make money. You bought a house in 2007, and I'll tell you the condo that I bought went down in value. A neighbor across the hall from me bought the identical unit, brand new, as I did from the builder, a year after I did, for $100,000 less than I did. But I wasn't selling it. I bought it because I had a son in LA and I like going out there to visit before the zombie apocalypse, of course. And I would go out there, every 3 or 4 weeks. I ran into Ron as he was doing his transcontinental flights a number of times. And I didn't think I lost $100,000. And when she sold her home, I guess 3 or 4 years ago, for slightly under $1 million, I didn't feel that I had made all that money because I still own my condo. Right. So the market was going up and down. And she, by the way, just as an aside, after she had been in there a year or two and the market was very difficult, she had lost her job. She was thinking about just throwing the keys back to the bank. And I convinced her to hold on and helped her get some forbearance. I mean, she made close to $400,000 just by hanging on and continuing to live. So whatever your buyer pays now, even though it seems like it's really high, 10 years from now, it'll be normal and they'll be bragging about how they were able to buy that house for only that much money. I mean, that's the way the real estate market works. So if you're a seller, when you have an offer, your question is, what are the chances of replacing the buyer? Now, we know that the buyer will replace the house. May not be the same house, maybe smaller, maybe bigger, maybe nicer, maybe worse, but we know they can replace it. What are the chances of replacing the buyer with a buyer who's going to pay the same or more with similar terms in a time frame that works for you? And if they need to move quickly and you can't move yet, can you get a bridge loan? Do you have the ability to stay somewhere else? You need to take a look at what the alternatives are when you get that offer or when you make that offer, the best things that you can do or the worst things, right? What happens if, as a seller, what happens if you don't sell to this seller? What happens if the buyer doesn't buy this house? What happens if they don't buy or sell right now? Again, one of the things you might look at now, and I'm sure you're all very aggressive, is look at people whose homes expired 3 or 4 years ago. Maybe they're ready to sell now. Maybe their worst alternative to a negotiated agreement was just staying in the same place, not moving to Florida yet, or not going to Arizona, or not downsizing, or not getting off the 2-story. So take a look at what those things are. And that sort of gives you not only your best alternative, but potentially their best alternative to have an idea of the strengths of the two parties. What's the fear of loss? Right? What's going to happen if you lose this buyer, if you lose that seller? You know, how is that going to impact where you're going? You know, my son has actually settled into this great zone, and I'm using him because he's the buyer I talk to most frequently now. He's settled into this great zone. I really don't want to spend more for the home than I feel comfortable with. I'm happy taking time to go look at it. We're pretty flexible in the areas and style of homes that they're looking at. I feel comfortable that we'll find one that'll work for him. And you know that he will, because everybody eventually finds the buyer or finds the seller. With us, we have the urgency. We have this buyer, we have this seller. We want to do the deal now because we want to clean the deal up and go on to the next one, because we can't retire on any one transaction, right? But we have to remember our clients' needs. So the question is, what's our zone of possible agreement, right? Where's a place that we can find interests that overlap, where I can pay enough for the buyer to be happy, yet little enough that I can be happy, where they can get enough so that they're happy with their transaction, and yet not more than I'm willing to pay. And that zone is always there, by the way. It's there on every transaction. You know, the idea, and we have this when we sit with sellers, because and I'm sure you're finding some of this, not every home has 18 offers on it. So in the home that's been on the market a little bit longer, when you finally get an agreement and you want to sit down with the seller, and the seller says, well, maybe the next guy will give me more. You know, this guy wants my washer and I don't want to leave the washer. Anybody ever heard that? Just curious. Can I see the hands of everybody here who's bought a dining room fixture? Ever? Right. Like all of us, we've bought more fixtures and appliances that we'll never use, right? To make the deal. But that's because instead of negotiating it with, we have negotiated that with them, in our case, from a position of weakness. We don't want to lose the commission. We'd rather accept less of a commission than lose that particular transaction. One of the things I would ask you to be careful of is not to fall prey to nibble negotiations. I hate nibble negotiations. First of all, and I will tell you, if you ever bring me an agreement, please don't call me and ask me if the seller will accept. I don't know. And if I'm the seller, I'm not going to tell you. Right? I want an offer in writing. We had a piece of ground out in Chester County. I got a call from an agent. It was not listed. It had been on the market and we're considering building it. And the agent said, may I show the ground? Sure. The agent said, I have a buyer who'd like to make an offer. Will you entertain the offer? And will you pay a commission? I said, sure, bring me the offer. I'll take a look at it. The agent, and the agent was texting, but we never spoke. Really a generational thing, I guess. So the next text was, I spoke with my seller. We should have an LOI to you within a few days. And I wrote back and I said, please don't send me a letter of intent. I don't negotiate on them because a letter of intent is only a contract to enter into a contract. So why would I want to do that? Right? Just send me the contract. Give me all the terms because price and terms are two ends of the same issue, right? We'll talk about that a little bit more. And the next thing I get is I actually get an agreement. The agreement was terrible. It was way too little money. There was no way I was selling it and the terms were horrible. But at least I knew what the negotiation was, right? And in that case, I was negotiating from a little more strength because while I'd be fine selling it. I'm fine owning it. I've owned it for a while. I'll own it for a little bit longer. It's not terrible. Do you guys run into nibble negotiations? You know, they'll take this much money. Well, will they take that much money? And I know they weren't leaving the appliances, but maybe would they leave the appliances, or would they take that much money and could they move out like a week before? Could we get in there a week before closing? Because my clients would like to paint and then move in on that day. And if they can do that, would they then do something else? Get everything in writing. Don't negotiate verbally. I just think letters of intent are, any of you guys licensed in Jersey too? So the letters of intent in Jersey used to be a whole thing because they weren't preparing agreements the way we are accustomed to in Pennsylvania. They were going to attorneys. So they would write a proposal to purchase or a letter of intent, and then give that to the attorney to memorialize it in an attorney written agreement. We don't need to do that. It's really sloppy. You're being a lazy agent. We get paid well. Don't do that. Do your job right, right? Make a contract. We've got one of the best state form libraries in the entire United States. Utilize them. Do it simply. So here's the other thing. I worked for a broker for many years before I opened up, who said two things to me that I thought were really significant. One was that the only mistake he ever made in buying real estate was selling it. Think about that for a minute. That's really deep. It goes back to my 10-year kind of thing. If you hold on to real estate long enough, you will become, and you guys should buy something every year, but if you hold on to real estate long enough, you will become a millionaire. You will become a multimillionaire if you buy enough of it. The other thing was he was an appraiser. And when people asked him what a home was worth, you know, he would always ask, am I buying it or selling it? Again, pretty deep, right? If I'm selling it, it's worth more than if I'm buying it. The third thing was teaching me that if there's an agreement, if it's my price, you can have your terms, right? That's the cash buyer, right? I'm an investor. I do flip and fixes pretty frequently. If you give me my price, I don't care if you take everything out of the house or you leave everything in the house. I don't care if you want to settle it in 10 days, 12 days, or 20 days. I don't care if you want to settle it and stay there for a month. I don't care if the roof leaks and you want me to mop up the water every time. I don't care if you want to take your grandmother's cast iron tub out of there. It's all good because it's my price. So you can have all the terms you want. The alternative to that is how I bought my first properties when I didn't have enough money to pay attention. So then I needed terms. If you give me good terms, a dollar down and a dollar a week for the rest of my life, I'll pay you whatever you want because I don't care, because I'll make the terms and the price work. So bear that in mind, because you're doing that on every transaction. It's and Jim, this goes back to your question about price. It's not just about price. What kinds of terms could you give the other party that might help your deal be more attractive? Like, we're not a fan of love letters in the industry as an association of realtors. The National Association of Realtors discourages them. PAR is not a huge fan. You can read our counsel, Hank Lerner, talking about that, because there's a potential for fair housing violations, depending on what the content of that is and the decision. And then there's the potential implication of fair housing issues, even if that was not intended in love letters. But sometimes people make emotional decisions. My son actually was requested to write a love letter on a property. The people that had bought the property really put a lot of their heart into it. They wanted to sell to a young couple that was going to really treasure the home in the way they treasured it. And that was a term for them. So give thought to that terms and price. If you've given all the price you can, think about the terms you can deal with. If you need terms, be a little more flexible on the price. It'll work out. So the other thing I want you to do, transactions are complicated. I'm going to contradict myself, by the way, in this slide and the next one, because here I'm telling you, don't text, don't write, talk. What I mean here is you are not as articulate on your phone as you think you are. You are probably more articulate when you write an email than you are when you text. But my guess is, regardless of how skilled a texter you are, whether you have mad emoji fingers or not, no matter how terrific an email writer you are, whether you are a correspondent that writes the best letters since Ben Franklin and Mark Twain, it doesn't matter. You probably speak better. And when you're speaking to the other party, you can get reactions from them in real time. It's synchronous communication that you can potentially use in your communications with your client to help your offer be better. Right? Because sometimes they're not telling you the truth. In my son's instance, when somebody has a property for sale in the 800,000 range, and the other agent says, we already have offers that are over 900. To me, they have offers at about 905, 910. If they said they had offers at close to $1 million, they probably have offers near 950. Right? Because they're going to round up. They're going to give you they're going to try to show a position of strength to encourage you to make the higher offer. So talk, feel them out, get some idea of what's going on. Ask questions, pleasant questions. Be polite. Don't be adversarial. Don't be abrupt. Be inquisitive. Gee, that's great. Why are they doing that? I'm amazed you got that many offers. Are they all conventional? But that's terrific to get that many offers. You have any cash yet? I mean, they're just, make them feel good about it. People love to talk about stuff that they're doing where they feel they're winning, right? But the other thing is, when you actually make an agreement, get it in writing, specify the terms, make sure that you get things back. And now I'm going to tell you my little commercial story. So I'm in the middle of a commercial negotiation. The landlord wants a higher rental. I'm willing to give them $1 more a foot a year, just because I was lazy and I didn't want to move the office. There's more space than we needed at the time. The guy says, sure, that's fine. And then sends me in writing $1.50 increase and a series of paragraphs that he said he was adding to make this lease more uniform with other leases, the real estate investment trust owns, which is not my problem at all, is it? They're having leases that conform to each other. So because he annoyed me, I made some calls to find out what else was available in the area. The very short part was a week later, I called him up and I said, look, I just wanted to let you know we're moving. And he said, what can I do to make you stay? I said, you can't make me stay. I said, the new location that I found will save me $24,000 a year. There's no reason for me to stay. He said, if I can match it, will you stay? Now, at that point, if I don't have to move, if the location's already in good shape, if I'm saving the same amount of money and I don't have to buy signs or change licenses or anything else, of course it was silly. But the guy cost himself $22,000 by not just taking the $1 and stopping, right? When he got to writing, he made a deal verbally. He then gave me something else in writing that surprised and annoyed me. And he ended up costing his company somewhere around $110,000 in a 5-year lease. So be careful, but treat the other party well. Don't spring surprises. Let them know what's coming. Prepare them properly. Now, it takes a commitment, but you really, really want to try to stay on the path while you're doing this. The other thing I mentioned, and I'm going to clean it up because you had a couple of questions, so I'm going to try to go over them, is selling the difference. So when you get to a price, if somebody's asking $350,000 for a property and your client only wants to offer, $310,000, and you don't think that's going to happen in the normal world, not the superheated world, but the world I think you're going to be back in within the next year or two, in a more normal world, you're better off bringing them to the 310, getting a counter offer, and then selling the difference between the 310 and the 350. Or if they're getting an offer, if perhaps you're a listing agent and their price is too high and you need to get them to accept a more moderate price, right? The question becomes, would you buy your house back for that amount of money? Because that's what you're doing. You're asking 350, they've offered 340. You'll be the highest sale in the development to date. I know you wanted the 350, but are you willing to buy your house back for 340? Make sense? So the last thing that I want you guys to remember is that it's more important for your client to be happy than it is for you to win. And we very often just get emotionally engaged in the transaction, and we just want to win because that other agent's just a jerk. They didn't treat me nice. They don't call me back. I have a hard time getting a hold of them. My colors are black and gold. Theirs are burgundy or red, white, and blue or puce or whatever the color is, so I don't like them as much. And I want to win. I want to show them how powerful I am, even if it costs my client the price or the home. Don't do that. Okay. It's really, the best case is really when everybody can look at the transaction and go, you know what? That was great. So in that end, when you get advice from your clients, and I want to give you, Dave Spivak asked, how do you deal with an agent who wants to win the negotiation? I'd let them win. Like, it's okay if they can win and I can get what I need, I'm fine to let them win. Right? The win might be you have to settle at my office. All right. We'll settle at your office. It's not a problem. The win might be you have to bring me the check tonight. Give them some kind of win. You don't have to necessarily give them the largest win. Andrew Jacobs asked, and this was the one I was looking for, how do we balance having conversations on behalf of our sellers versus getting our sellers permission? You need to be getting your sellers instructions. You need to be explaining to them the options explaining to them how you're going to go back. Like, have open conversations with them. They're your clients. Your job is to give them the greatest chance to get what they need out of the process. And in doing that, you need to know what their instructions are. You know, if they ask, will your seller do this? I don't know. Why don't you put it in writing and let me go back and talk to my seller? And then go talk to the seller and say, I've been told that we might be getting this, not I have this. If you don't have it in writing and it's not in your hand, you don't have it, right? But I've been told we might be getting this. What do you think about it? How would you handle it? What do you like? What do you want? Get their instructions. And if they're giving you instructions that are stupid or are bad, then don't do that. Explain to them why you can't. That's a fair housing issue. That's a truth in lending issue. That's a tax issue. We can't do those things. Part of my job as your agent is not only to sell your home for the highest and best price, but I'd really like to keep you out of jail and out of court. So this is why you can't do that. Gabriella Harris said, I think nibble negotiation is a cultural thing for some people. Absolutely. Absolutely. And there are some cultures that will negotiate everything everywhere because that's the culture, but that's fine. Just embrace it. You know, I mean, that's not a problem. No is an answer also. Here, what types of questions can we ask the listing agent that doesn't show weakness, but to try to get info that we need in a multiple bid situation so I can write the best offer? And that's Laz Karasavas. I hope I did that right, Liz. I got it? Okay. So my answer to that was prepare early, right? Ask the questions early. The earlier you ask, you know, where are they moving? When are they leaving? You know, is there anything in particular that we could do to help make their move smoother? Do they need to stay in the place? You know, is it necessary for them to stay in the place after closing? Do they need a quick closing date? Do they need a longer closing date? Is there anything you can tell me about their needs that we could help meet? But do it early. Do it before you're already up and like every house is not a multiple offer situation anymore, right? Many of them are, but every house is not. So before you assume it, just go into every transaction, finding out as much as you can about as much of the process as is available. And you should be fine. Did that answer the question, I hope? Cool. Shana Pierce, how do you handle negotiations with clients who are unwilling to submit strong offers? A baseball bat. No, I'm teasing. You just explain to them, you ask them whether or not they want to rethink purchasing, and you provide them with information on the market that's not tied to a specific negotiation. Look, you can go into Bright MLS and you can see the statistical percentage of ask to sale in any marketplace in the Bright footprint. Right? Like I actually did this in California with my son. I wanted to know what it is statistically. You know, are people buying at 10% over the ask? Are they buying at 5% over the ask? Are they buying at 5% under the ask? Use those numbers and use them before they're negotiating, because otherwise they're going to feel that you're negotiating with them and they're in that win-lose mentality because they've not been here to talk about principled negotiation and win-win. Right? So help them past that. Don't make it about that. Say, look, you could do this when you have your first meeting with them. Before we go out, you've probably read a lot in the newspapers about what's going on in our marketplace. And I really want you as my clients to be as well informed as possible. So what I've done is I've ran a study of what the average list to sale price is in our marketplace over the last 30 days, the last 6 months, and the last 1 year. I just wanted you to take a look at it So you have some idea of what you're getting into as we go out there. One of my agents was actually showing a home to her brother. Excuse me, she's Eastern European. It's a negotiating culture. The idea of paying an asking price was abhorrent to her. We had a conversation before she started looking. I sent her out to look at the numbers. He just bought a house a week ago, going in over the asking price, statistically in the right range, and got his deal. So prepare your people, let them know what it is they have to do with. Don't just give them vague numbers. If you give them something they can work on, it kind of helps. Am I over my time, Pam? Because I don't want to keep people.
You're 1 minute over if you want to wrap it up. And the other thing is we have one more question, I think. Jennifer, the frustrating part, most listing agents don't answer their phone. Hard to negotiate.
Right. So don't leave a message and
Right.
don't leave a text, because they're not going to call you back because they don't care.
Right.
Right. Because I'm a listing agent. If I don't know you and you have texted me or called me, the first thing to do is to pretend that that person has money for you, and then call them until you reach them. Eventually you'll get them. At some point, they'll answer their phone. Like, it's not that they never answer their phone. Or see if they have an assistant and call the assistant. But I would just keep trying to reach them. I would call them before I showed it. And I would say, for example, I'm trying to see who that is. I would say, Jennifer, listen, the reason I called you is I know you've been in business for a while. You do a great job listing. I know you're very active in this area, in Burgundy Hills, and I wanted to show your house on this street. But if anything else comes up, I'd really love to be aware of it. Oh, I know everybody's bothering me. No, I know that these are really nice kids. I'm just trying to do something for them. Establish a relationship. If you try to establish the relationship and you want them to act like your best friends the first time you call them, like, that just doesn't work. We have a lot to discuss. Can we come back for another one like this? You got to ask Her Excellency, Ms. Croak. She's in charge of me. I am but a member like all the rest of you guys. Serving at the pleasure of Pam.
This has been such a popular topic and instructor that we're certainly going to talk about this and try to get another one on the books. Mr. Lublin is a very, very busy individual, however, so we'll have to negotiate that.
I'm very fancy too.
So fancy.
But
fancy.
I can be bought for chocolate. Mostly dark chocolate, I'm just saying. You're welcome, Sarah and William. Thank you.
Yeah, again, thank you so much, Bill, for all of this. It's been tremendous. The hour flew by so quickly, but we will be sending the link to this recording out to everyone. And we certainly will put it on our radar to bring this topic to the forefront yet again. And hey, who knows, maybe there's a course that we'll put together for this.
Right.
Not
There,
sure we can-
there might be,
Yeah.
there might be, for example, the RENE course, the
Might be.
designation course,
Yeah,
which
that's
is so much fun to teach.
it's a great course. So everybody needs to keep your eye on your newsletter and on communications from BCAR. And we're going to do our best. And again, thank you so much, Bill Lublin. You're the best.
Thank you all. And thank everybody who was so nice to say thank you.
Sure. Well, okay, everybody, have a great rest of your day. Appreciate seeing you all. And let's hope for better times in the future where we can be together in person. Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye now.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.